Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody had a healthy, well, and safe weekend. And I hope you're ready to start the week and got your lesson plans this morning. If you could please shoot me an email or message me on Facebook to say that you got the lesson plans, that's all you need to do. I don't need to even hear from you again. I mean, if you want to do those 2 questions, that would be great. But as long as I get an email that says, got it, we're all set. All right, so let's do the core practice this morning. And we will get a relaxed position, close our eyes, and take deep breaths. Nice job. All right, so gratitude today. I am really grateful that I can look out my window today and see sunshine. It is always, always a better day when you can see sunshine. So that I am grateful for the sun today. All right, so our next chapter was called The Grown-Up Letter. Really had no idea what that could possibly be. So let's start out and see if we figured it out. It was almost Thanksgiving when Ramona decided that she liked Mrs. Meacham most of the time. Not that Mrs. Meacham did not have flaws. She did, in Ramona's opinion. Mrs. Meacham was enthusiastic about spelling and especially enjoyed words with silent letters such as knit and wrist. She was also a stickler for pronunciation and corrected anyone who said gonna or shoulda. If you don't pronounce correctly, you can't spell, she said much too often, Ramona thought. Most of the 4th grade thought Mrs. Meacham had another flaw. She confiscated any notes written by her class that were sailed, passed, or dropped on desks. She then read them for misspelled words, and if she found one, added it to the list on the chalkboard. Words we need to work on. She then tore up the notes and threw them into pieces in the wastebasket. The 4th grade thought this was unfair, but Ramona was not much concerned. By the 4th grade, she'd learned to put up with her teachers. She was not concerned, that is, until one day when Yardape, on his way to the pencil sharpener, dropped a note on her desk. She picked it up and was about to read it when Mrs. Meacham said, "Ramona, bring the note to me." Oh. There's Danny putting the note on her desk. Mrs. Meacham read it, smiled, and turned to the chalkboard where she added one word to the list of words we need to know, to work on. That word was Ramona. She then tore up the note and gave a little talk about how confusing N is with M. Ramona, along with the rest of the class, then knew Yardape had spelled Ramona, Ranoma, instead of Ramona. She glanced at him. He was looking straight ahead, and even his ears were red. She had never seen Yardape embarrassed before. What could he have written in the note? At recess, all the boys chanted, "Danny loves Ramona. Danny loves Ramona." Daisy asked, "Didn't you get to read any of it?" Ramona shook her head, more curious than ever. She decided to ask Yardape, but he was so busy kicking a ball that he acted as if he had never met her. Oh well, now her class would have to study her name and spelling. Ramona liked that. Yardape continued to avoid Ramona. When he wasn't paying attention in class, he was busy drawing a wristwatch in ink on his arm. On the bus, he sat with the rowdy boys in the last seats. As the winter rains beat against the classroom windows, Ramona plodded along with spelling day after day, spelling most words right if she had worked hard, something she did not often do. On tests, if she spelled them all right, Mrs. Meacham wrote, "Keep up the good work," on her paper. Ramona sometimes wondered if spelling correctly was worthwhile because those who spelled all their words right were given what Mrs. Meacham called reward words to work on. These were really hard words, some with 3 syllables. Ramona did not feel rewarded. At home, Ramona's parents and sometimes Beezus sat beside her on the couch and went over spelling words with Ramona, who squirmed, unfastened, and refastened the Velcro on her shoes, or tried to put one foot behind her head. Her parents sighed. Beezus said, "Oh, grow up, Ramona." "I am a potential grown-up," Ramona said with dignity, pleased to have used a reward word. She looked at Roberta lying in her playpen with her chewed-up bear and felt a moment of pity for her baby sister and what lay ahead of her in growing up, especially spelling. All of this made Ramona feel surrounded by words. There were words every place she looked, in books and newspapers, on signs and television, on cereal boxes and milk cartons. The world, Ramona decided, was full of people who used their dictionary skills and probably weren't any fun. Then one day, when Ramona was riding on the school bus going to Daisy's house, she glanced out the window and happened to notice a license plate on a car in the next lane. Instead of numbers, it had letters. Library. "Daisy, look," she said. "They left out a letter." Ramona was sure of the spelling of library because she went to the branch library once a week and saw the words above the door every time she entered. "You'd better tell Mrs. Meacham," said Daisy. The next morning, Ramona approached Mrs. Meacham, planted herself squarely in front of her teacher, and said, "I saw a license plate with library spelled with only one R, and that is wrong." "Good for you, Ramona," said Mrs. Meacham. "I know that license plate. It belongs to the county librarian." Ramona was indignant. "If she can't spell, why is she a librarian? Librarians should know how to spell." Mrs. Meacham laughed and said, "I'm glad you think so, Ramona, but the state of Oregon only allows 6 letters on a personalized license plate. I'm sure the librarian is really an excellent speller." "Oh," said Ramona, disappointed. She wanted a grown-up to be wrong for a change. She was tired of the rightness of grown-ups. That same day, late in the afternoon, when Ramona was grouchy because her mother had turned off Big Hospital, she was reading when she came across a strange word, asinine. She didn't want to spoil the pleasure of reading by looking it up, so she called out to anyone who would listen. "What does asinine mean?" Beezus answered, "Dumb, silly, acting like a mule." She was cross because she was having trouble with French verbs. Ramona scowled, annoyed by her sister's superiority. "I didn't ask to have my vocabulary built. I just wanted to know what it meant." "Like I said, dumb, foolish, mulish," said Beezus. "Like you." Oh, that was too much for Ramona. She threw down her book and called out, "Mother, Beezus called me a bad name." "Well, you are," said Beezus. "You are dumb, foolish, mulish, and asinine. Everybody has to learn how to spell." "Wasn't asking about spelling, and just because you're in high school, you think you're so big," countered Ramona. "Well, I think you're mean." "At least I keep my half of our room neat," said Beezus. Mrs. Quimby came into the room. "Girls, stop it this minute. I've had enough of this nonsense. Ramona, you are being foolish. Yes, asinine about learning to spell. And Beezus, you are being ridiculous when you call your sister names. This sort of thing will only escalate into more name-calling. This is no example to set for Roberta." The girls were startled. Their mother rarely spoke so sharp. They looked at each other with looks that said, "Foolish? Us?" "And furthermore," said Mrs. Quimby, "I don't want to hear any more bickering about whose turn it is to clean up your room." With that, she stalked out of the room to look after fussing Roberta, who was feverish. The pediatrician had given her a shot to prevent her from getting whooping cough. "We're nice most of the time," Beezus regretted name-calling. "We wouldn't be normal if we didn't forget sometimes." "I don't suppose Roberta will be one of those people who grows up just naturally knowing how to spell," Ramona sighed, defeated. not with me for a role model. Spelling is just one of those things you just have to do, said Beezus. And there's always the dictionary. Boring, said Ramona, and thought fondly of Daisy, herself a good speller, who never criticized Ramona's spelling because she could tell what it meant. We're going to stop there. So we'll find out what happens later on with Ramona's spelling issues. See if we find out what was in that note from Danny. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I hope to hear messages and emails back from you that you did receive this week's lesson plans. Have a good day.